Classic WoW has a gathering problem, and it's not the spawn rates. Gathering used to be part of the adventure and gave little bits of excitement. Now bots own the nodes, and mafias own the mobs, and layer hoppers are 3 steps ahead of you before you've even loaded in. These people aren't just playing the game, they're exploiting systems that were never designed to handle this kind of interaction. Classic WoW's gathering professions are built on a foundation that made sense in 2004. They just weren't built for thousands of bots farming 24/7, or a group that can plant themselves on a handful of mob spawns and cut everyone else out of the market completely. Now yes, better moderation would help. Banning bots should be the first priority. Classic Plus is going to be a big release on official servers with real money involved. But if history tells us anything, without change, it only repeats. Because right now, Blizzard isn't winning the bot battle. Honestly, to many of us, it's not even clear they're even fighting it. But for the sake of argument, let's do a thought experiment. Let's put on those critical thinking caps. Let's say Blizzard never truly solves the bot problem. Maybe they can't, maybe they won't. Maybe the subscription revenue from all those bot accounts is too valuable. So the question becomes, could gathering professions be tweaked in a way that still feels good for normal players, even in a world where bots and mafias continue to exist? I think that answer might actually be yes. Because I think the real problem with gathering professions in Classic isn't just scarcity, it's denial. The problem isn't that resources are valuable. The problem is that legitimate players are constantly locked out of interacting with those resources unless they crack open those gold wallets. We need to remember that a player's time is also a resource. So here's the idea. What if gathering nodes were partially tied to the individual player instead of being entirely tied to the world? Imagine you're searching for minerals in Elwyn Forest. You walk through the hills and spot a copper vein. You mine it. Another player nearby might not see the exact same node. Maybe they see a different node entirely. Maybe they don't see one there at all. The resource exists for you. In WoW terms, let's say that they are phased to your client. The other players will still see your character mining or gathering, so the world doesn't suddenly feel empty or disconnected. In a perfect world, they might even see you near a generic rock or stump or patch of grass where your node is located. But let's be real, you will be swinging your pickaxe or be kneeling next to nothing, and that would be fine. The important part is this. Bots and farming mafias could no longer permanently deny gathering resources from legitimate players. Now obviously, the system can't just hand players infinite materials. The goal isn't turning gathering into free loot vending machines. Like I mentioned in my last video, it's all about the feeling and philosophy. You still want gathering to feel like vanilla. You still want discovery. You still want randomness. You still want those moments where you just get lucky and find exactly what you're looking for. So here's how I think the system could work. Instead of individual nodes spawning at fixed locations globally, zones could contain invisible gathering regions. For example, Elwyn Forest might have 10 large copper spawn regions. Inside each region, one possible copper vein can appear for the player. Once you mine it, that specific region goes on a personal cooldown timer, maybe somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes. After each timer expires, another node has a chance to respawn somewhere in that region for you again.
But Philpsey, wouldn't players just run farming loops every 30 minutes forever?
Yeah, they would probably try. So let's add another mechanic. Nodes could also have an uptime timer. If a node spawns and nobody discovers it, let's say within 10 minutes, it despawns and resets somewhere in that region, except for in the area the player is in. That way players just can't memorize perfect hourly routes and guarantee resources every cycle. It keeps gathering dynamic. And to fight that frustrating moment where a node might disappear right as you're walking towards it, have the uptime timer pause or reset if the player's actually near the node, let's say within the minimap range. This system would massively reduce the power of gathering bots, because even if they monopolized their own nodes, they wouldn't be monopolizing the entire economy anymore.
I have a pretty big criticism about that. Gathering professions are supposed to be competitive.
Of course, I totally agree with that too. The feel of classic WoW absolutely benefits from contested resources. That tension is part of what makes the world feel alive. So instead of making all nodes personal, I'd split them into two categories. Two categories which we've already seen aspects of in-game. Lesser nodes and greater nodes. Lesser nodes would be player-phased. These are the typical nodes we're all used to seeing. Essentially base materials with a small percentage of something shiny. The resources players need constantly while leveling professions, with that small chance of something extra. Greater nodes, however, would be tied to the actual world, and these would contain those premium rewards. Let me give you an example. We all know about small thorium veins, and they might only provide ore, stone, and if you're lucky, a gem. And then there are rich thorium veins. They have a bit more of all of that, plus a chance for those sweet, sweet arcane crystals. So let's expand on that. Stick with me here. Have small thorium veins add a small chance at arcane crystals, or a new material like arcane crystal shards that can be combined, to not outright deny players from their own farming. But those rich mothers, those should still be a contested world node with its higher chances of whole arcane crystals and gems, along with more ore and stone. Maybe we have rich copper veins with significantly higher chances of rare gems and a greater haul of ore and stone, and just go down the line of resources, rich tin veins, rich silver veins, etc. This keeps competition alive where it really matters, while removing the frustration of players being completely starved out of their own profession progression. And this idea doesn't apply only to mining. Herbalism could work in the same way. Silverleaf phase to the player and overgrown silverleaf bushes competing in the world. And fishing could work in the same way. Oily blackmouth schools phase to the player, while crowded oily blackmouth schools are for competition. Having base systems like this could even open the door for new gathering professions entirely. Imagine a logging profession where players search forests for harvestable trees and rare lumber nodes. This feels incredibly fitting for a Classic Plus.
Philpsey, you conveniently left something out. What about skinning?
Yeah, skinning is a bit harder. On a regular basis, skinning is probably fine. It's when you get into those elite or rare open world mobs that have specific skins where Blizzard should implement something. And you can't just introduce a mechanic to allow multiple players to skin a corpse within a time frame. Players would definitely find a way to abuse that. So maybe skinning evolves a little bit differently. Let's jump into an example. Let's get into my headspace. One of Classic's most infamous problems, Devilsaur farming. Back in Classic, entire groups controlled Devilsaur spawns around the clock. If you weren't part of the Mafia, good luck getting Devilsaur leather yourself. Now, I don't actually think Devilsaurs themselves should become a personal node like I was talking about. Rare elite creatures should remain contested. That's part of Classic's identity. But maybe Blizzard could introduce a corpse node for skinners. A person may happen upon one of these new player-phased rotting devilsaur remains or sloughed devilsaur shedding, and upon skinning it, might gather up some devilsaur leather scraps. Almost worthless. However, leather workers could combine enough of these scraps together to eventually create a full devilsaur leather, just like the mechanic of combining all other leathers before it. This preserves the prestige and rarity of devilsaur gear while making it realistically accessible to normal players. And this could be used to implement other, new or rare skins out in the world. Remember when we say player time is a resource? That fits nicely here. Let's expand on this experiment further. Maybe professions gain access to a trades goods stash node, hidden around dangerous areas, or just hidden from plain view. Think of the satchels, caches, and supply packs in retail right now. These could be small profession hoards, treasure chests if you will. Some both phase to the player, and some phase to the world. Except only players with a high enough profession can sort through them. Things like leather bales or tanning racks for skinners, ore crates or stone pallets for miners, herb jars or sacks for herbalists, fabric bundles or abandoned spools for tailors, or wood piles or lumber stacks for logging. These could also be another spot to find those combinable devilsaur leather scraps or arcane crystal shards or black lotus petals or any other new item Classic Plus decides to add in. It would also make the world feel more immersive while spreading gathering opportunities beyond pure mob grinding.
But Philpsey, what about my friends and groups?
Partying with your friends shouldn't hinder any of this. Remember, the lesser nodes would be tied to the player's client, and you may fight freely for those greater nodes. But if you're concerned about dungeons and raids, leave those as is. All nodes inside of instances should still be a free-for-all to promote social coherency or disruption when someone starts gathering away without asking the group first. Hopefully you can follow the core idea behind this system. I can argue this: it doesn't remove rarity, it doesn't remove the economy, it doesn't remove player interaction. It removes denial. Right now, gathering professions don't reward players for exploring the world. They reward players for layer hopping, camping timers, competing against bots, or using WoW tokens or even RMT to purchase from sellers who already control the economy. We all fear the WoW token will be coming at some point. Blizzard's solution so far has mostly been a band-aid of brute force. Increase spawn rates, add layers, and flood the market with more materials. But that doesn't actually solve the underlying issue. If nodes are tied to the player instead of the server layer, then suddenly dynamic spawn timers matter less, layer hopping matters less, bot monopolies matter less, and mafia control matters less. And every player with a gathering profession gets a fair chance to participate in the system. Now obviously this idea creates new questions too. What happens to server economies? Would material prices crash?
Where's the auction house?
Could bots still abuse personal nodes? Would PvP groups start controlling stash node locations instead? Those are real concerns. But the auction house will still exist. The farming will still exist. Trading will still exist. Players who do not want to farm will still exist. And the player's time will still exist. This system is probably nowhere perfect. I'm obviously not a game designer. I've only gone over a basic rundown of this type of system. I don't know what numbers or timers should be correct, or the kind of numbers where players would feel is balanced or fair. Monopolies and mafias will absolutely hate this idea too, but they need to remember they will still have their customers. It will absolutely be faster and more enriching in groups with the world nodes. And this doesn't even go over how the mechanics of gathering could really use an interactive overhaul. instead of just clicking once or twice. But I do think this is more interesting than pretending Classic's current gathering systems are healthy. Because a gathering profession should also feel like an adventure. You should log into Classic excited to explore the world and search for your treasures, not mindlessly following a perfected node route with eyes glaze over, mouth breathing your sentience away, worried that every resource is already controlled by scripts and farming groups. And ultimately, I think that's the real question. Should gathering professions reward the players for playing the game? Or reward players for manipulating outdated systems and automation? Because if Blizzard doesn't want to solve the bot problem, then maybe they can at least adapt to it and keep the players engaged. But yeah, those are my thoughts on how Blizzard could potentially redesign gathering professions for Classic Plus, or any other version of WoW. That follows along with my last video of how Classic Plus should feel and the philosophy behind that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would some player-phased gathering nodes actually improve World of Warcraft? Or would this completely ruin the spirit of Classic professions? And honestly, if you have better ideas, I genuinely want to hear them, because this is one of those problems Blizzard has been struggling with for years now. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe, and maybe share it with that guildmate who's permanently running around on Goro farming Devil Sore for 18 hours a day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in Classic Plus.